The attack at two federal military installations in Chattanooga on Thursday is a picture of a clash of civilizations, if I might use the title of a very important 1990 book by a writer, Samuel Huntington, a great scholar. And his title is The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order. And he says that all throughout the last century, the 20th century, there was a resurgence of religion throughout the world, and it came as a reaction against secularism, moral relativism, self-indulgence, and it was a reaffirmation of values of order, discipline, work, help, mutual help, and human solidarities. And this movement has been very strongly felt in the last century in the world of Muhammad, the world of Islam, as it's called, the Mohammedan world, the world of the Moor. And there, of course, has been an extensive war by the Muslim creed against two main parties. One of them is Christendom, which is to say Christianity, the main concept in the world, the main idea in the world, the one that has enjoyed remarkable growth since the resurrection of Christ. And the other is you might say its bastard child, and that is materialist secularism, encouraged by evolutionary thinking and the rise of the progressive state. In other words, modern states are part of that secularizing trend. And the Muslim world has fought against both, as it did against Christendom in the era of the Crusades, when the Moors invaded Europe and had, by Bill Warner's count, more than 500 battles to overturn Christian civilization, at that time largely Roman Catholic, whereas the counteraction by Christendom was a meager 60 or so battles against Muslim strongholds and fortifications and cities. So it's been a very one-sided. The power of the military is that of Muslim conquest. Christendom has, though, responded, as it did during the Crusades, with military action, though often very, very corrupt and not really inspired by religious fervor, but as much by a desire for lucre and by greed. Because the Crusaders were given absolution of their sins, their murders, their slaughters, their rapes ahead of time by the Pope. There were many people who went on crusade who had no care for rescuing the globe, that part of Europe, from Muslim warfare. They were there for their own purses and their own pleasures and their own excitement. The war of the Muslim world against Christendom, though, has come here to Chattanooga, and it is as I say, it's a picture of the clash of civilizations. And what I think we can see in this conflict is what effectively is a war against the idea of local economy, because the idea of local economy is a view that arises out of Christianity. It is a view of capitalism, of the marketplace. It is an ideal that is best expressed and has its greatest strength when Christianity is fully lived out by the people who are the beneficiaries of local economy and free markets. And my name is David Toulis, and that is the argument of our show here, Nuganomics.com at 1240 a.m. Hot News Talk Radio. These are the ideals that are under attack worldwide by the Muslim creed, the Muslim dogma, with its scimitars, its AKs, its bombs, its IEDs, its veils, and the chant, the haunting chant above the cityscapes in cities that are starting to fall under the Muslim sway. At the evening hour, the morning hour, the chants for prayers to Allah, the deity to which the Muslim gives his devotion and his worship. The very haunting melody in that you can hear obliquely the attack on the ideals here of our radio station, the ideals of perhaps of you, my listener, and it is you might say a warfare in the attack by this gunman, the UTC graduate, the Red Bank High School graduate, the engineering student who worked in Franklin, Tennessee, lived in his father's house, had 2 or 3 sisters. He represents a totalitarian ideological political system, because that's what Mohammedanism is. It is a political scheme with a very strong religious devotional aspect to it. It is, in the end, though, a political maneuver. And what it seeks to do is to transform countries through Sharia law, through the exercise of outward force and rules, into a people who are submissive to the high authorities in that religion. And the attack is against against the ideals of the West, we could say, though of course many people reject these ideals now. They don't hold that decentralized constitutional government, free markets, that these are good at all. In fact, these are dangerous, because they are expressive of self. They are allowing of people to be diverse, and the modern totalitarian democratic theme espoused by, but let's say, Planned Parenthood, right, and its supporters in the Democratic Party, that is very much like the totalitarian ideological claims of the Muslim theory. Christianity proposes something really different. Christianity is not about destroying lives of soldiers or innocent people or anybody. People in skyscrapers, these are not ones who have to be destroyed for us to win. Rather, Christianity, the great rival, the rival that I would like to suggest has already won the battle and the war, the great rival of Mohammedanism, is about propositions. The weapon of Christianity is the proposal, the idea, the suggestion, the sermon. The engine of war of Christianity is yes, it's the pulpit, in the Christian church. And by that device, where the word is elevated above the people, the minister is above the people, and stands kind of in an engine of reformation. He tells them as a minister, right? He has a ministerial duty to declare from his authority what is true, right? What is right, what is expected, who God is, what his love is like, what his anger is like. That is what the Christian minister does. He offers propositions, and by that simple means, that is very slow in its operation. It's very slow. It doesn't change people's minds immediately. It doesn't bring about reformation in a week or a year or a decade. It's a long-term form. And what we do here at NewGenomics.com is explore the fruit of that labor. Again, in Christianity, it's not a labor of violence, not a labor of convincing people by putting the barrel of an AK at the head of a child and saying to the father, you must confess Allah as God, or your child dies. That is not how Christianity works. And I know it sounds kind of obvious, but have you ever thought of it in that way? That we are in a clash of civilizations that Samuel Huntington, in his book, very, very well analyzes. And what happens and so what we have, what is the conflict? How do we, is there some way we can simplify the nature of the conflict, that the 4 dead Marines as victims are a picture of? We have the names of 3 of the Marines. There is another who were killed. 4 were killed. There is a Marine, a woman, whom we are told, I believe at the Chattanooga Times Free Press website, is fighting for her life. The dead include Thomas Sullivan, age 40, Skip Wells, 21, and a man named David Wyatt. Sullivan is the eldest of these. He's 40. David Wyatt, a Tennessean, also young. And I think the David Wyatt name came from the Tennessean, as reported at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. The attacker's name is Muhammad, and he was born with that name. So we have his bold strike. Our investigation today looks briefly at this bold strike by Muhammad at Mohammed's, the religious figure's rival, and that strike is against the United States. The United States, to the Muslim world, represents represents a great enemy, a great evil, partly because they see it as in its Christian form, which of course it really in many ways has lost, especially as it touches anything that the national power, the federal government does in Washington. There is in fact a great evil. For example, the injection of gay theory in countries across Africa and flying the gay flag slightly under the federal flag at embassies in places like Nairobi. That is understood by Muslims as an abomination. It is an abomination because Muslims are right on the point of homosexuality, even though there are of course great exceptions granted in Muslim theory about homosexual sex and sex with children and others, and yet still officially homosexuality is banned in Muslim countries, and homosexuals who are convicted in our great ally Saudi Arabia are hanged. They are given capital punishment. Well, the system that Muslim thinking brings to the world is as I say, it's a totalitarian. And think for a minute of vertical. Muslim is a top-down society like the pyramid on the back of the $1 Federal Reserve note. The dollar bill has that pyramid with the eye on top, and that, of course, is the New World Order espoused by the crypto masons, if you will, of the American founding. It's a top-down society. Christian society is left to right. In other words, it's horizontal. It's not vertical. It's not bureaucratic. It is not of empire. It is that of the free market, where everyone, where there are a lot of small players, there are thousands of small players, there are thousands of associations, thousands of churches, towns. You don't have a lot of verticality in a Christian civilization. We have a lot of that in ours here, in the fading United States empire, because of the fading of Christianity in many of its manifestations. Christianity has become very weak for various reasons that we explore at Nuganomics.com. And of course, there are other writers who look at that question in detail. But the Christian view is a left to right society of free markets where no one has an untoward advantage over anybody else, right? And that's how you have a horizontal society, a society that you could call voluntarist or relational. Muslim society, as that created by the Republican and Democratic parties, mind you, is vertical. It's up and down. You have the eye at the top, and you have a gigantic pyramid, and we're all just sort of slaves in this pyramid. And the Christian alternative is not top down, but left to right. And because it is not vertical, it's anti-totalitarian. It emphasizes service, repentance, internal reform, brought about by preaching, but brought about by reading the scriptures, where there is a kind of other-centeredness of the adherent of Christianity. In other words, he's loving his neighbor as himself, and he loves God with all his heart, soul, and mind, and his neighbor as himself. It is both of these are total schemes. You have to understand that Christianity is a total scheme, though many people who are identify themselves as Christians don't believe that. They think that Christianity is simply something that's between your ears, something that you do in your, quote, walk with God, right? Your private walk with God. And that's the extent of it. Christ is coming back tomorrow. Our only rescue is the final trump. And so many Christians are out of the battle entirely. They're not in the public square. As Janet Parshall likes to say, they're not in the public square, and yet she and many others are. They are fighting for the truth and fighting for the King, right? Their King being God the Father, and God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. That it is a. And since I mentioned the members of the Trinity, let me say that the attacker in Chattanooga believed in a unitary deity. Islam or Mohammedanism does not have a God within three persons. In other words, Christianity is Trinitarian. God has relations among his members. God is one God, but he has three persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And Christian theology then posits a relationship among these beings, these people, if you will, these members. Each is an individual distinct with his own duties and obligations and commitments, and each has a different task vis-a-vis humankind. But the Mohammedan theory, Muslim theory, is that there is no relation in the Godhead. There's just this one being, and so necessarily necessarily from theology, Muslim society is vertical. It does not have an integrating part. It does not have its parts are not diverse. They are united, right? They're unitary. They're consolidated, if you will, if you want to put it that way. There are not divisions. You have one culture, one caliph, one imam, and because theology controls all of reality, economic reality, moral reality, artistic reality, right, economic reality. Uh, Muslim thinking, Muslim theory tends to bring about a military hierarchy, and Muslim thinking brings about war. Christianity is just the opposite, as I suggested a moment ago. It is not a military scheme. Christianity is about service, right? It's about the arts. It's about business. It's about better crops. It's about increasing technology. And I've followed this question for some time, and I'm holding in my hand several books that tell about this. One is Victory of Reason, How Christianity Led to Freedom, Capitalism, and Western Success by Rodney Stark. It's an excellent book. I believe he's Roman Catholic. There's another book by Charles Murray. I've got the tape version here, Human Accomplishment, The Pursuit of Excellence in the Arts and Sciences, 800 BC to 1950. Christianity brings about the highest call for man, the best of men. Even Christianity, even though many of the great geniuses we've had are Jews, professing Jews or self-styled Jews, erstwhile descendants of the Israelites, right? Christianity and the Reformation brought that about, and Protestant over Reformed, but Christendom over the Muslim argument, according to Charles Murray. There's another very important book that came out in English in 1930, and that's by Franz Weber, the German sociologist. And that book is called, get the title, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. And Christendom, especially at the time of the Reformation in the 1500s, brought about this gigantic increase of prosperity and technological innovation, and followed up much more recently by the greatest Indian intellectual, Vishal Mangalwadi, and his book is The Book That Made Your World, How the Bible Created the Soul of Western Civilization. And that is remarkable. And these things did not happen under Muslim thinking. It did not happen under Muslim economic development. Right? It didn't happen there. It happened under Christianity. So I know you, my listener, you don't care much about Christianity, but you got to understand that you are living on the fruits of a system of thought and life and practice that you implicitly reject. I mean, you reject it because you don't accept it, but you don't accept it not on any, I'd say not on any reasons from within. The reason people don't accept Christianity is because God hasn't moved them with his love and his grace. And God doesn't move everybody with his grace, right? He moves some to repent. He moves some to recognize their lost state vis-a-vis his law. But not everybody. Not everybody sees what God wants men to see. And those who don't are, of course, rightly judged with eternal judgment. They're judged temporally, some of them, but all of them who are not the objects of God's grace and care, which are his decision alone, right? They are judged in eternity. And so Mangalwadi is an excellent study of how Christianity builds civilization. We are in a clash of civilizations, and we are looking to see how it is that how this conflict comes about, and we see it even here. Muhammad, the attacker at the two military facilities in Chattanooga, believed that to be faithful to God, he had to slaughter the infidels. He had to slaughter those who reject the Muslim claim. And the moderate Muslim people are not being faithful to their creed, right? They're generally not being faithful. They are the liberals. They are called by Professor Bill Warner, he's a Tennessee professor, I believe, in Middle Tennessee in engineering. He's an academician who goes by the nom de plume Bill Warner. His website is politicalislam.com. And he's an important academic. He's an important student of this great system that has subjugated civilizations for 1,400 years. Munafiqs are the moderates. They're called munafiqs. They're effectively hypocrites, and they're not doing what they're supposed to. But he proposes in an essay called "When the Jihad Comes, Whose Side Will You Be On?" that even the moderates who are unfaithful now may when the moment comes for jihad, may suddenly turn faithful. They may suddenly recommit to their God and then turn on their neighbors. It's something that has happened around the world, especially in the Mideast, in all the countries where the American empire has fought. We have bases in 38 countries and involvement with 150, with military power, with special forces, maybe even Marines, but certainly American political and military interests around the world. We have stoked hatred against ourselves. We are the great meddler, the great intervener on the globe today. But our country, the United States, is at an end of its great run. As all civilizations come to an end, all of them declined. Well, this is David Tillis. Now, I've got some important messages to hear.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. hotnewstalkradio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened the first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
When my brother and I opened the first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Officials still piecing together information about the man they say killed 4 Marines in Chattanooga yesterday. Kuwait-born Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz was not on the terror radar list.
It obviously shows the sense of the heightened sense that we all have to have about what could happen anywhere at any time.
Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam A search on in northern Maine for a man in a stolen logging truck after the shootings of 4 people in 3 communities. Anthony Lord is on the state's sex offender list. After Greece's parliament okayed spending cuts for bailout cash, it was Germany's turn.
Voting in favour of opening talks despite scepticism from some lawmakers about giving Greece more cash.
Die wichtigste Währung des Miteinanders.
Ahead of the vote, German Chancellor Angela Merkel saying trust with Greece has been damaged, but she said there would be chaos without a deal.
Fox Radio's Simon Owen, Greek banks due to reopen Monday. Fox News, we report, you decide.
I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
Make sure you go to Delia's Authentic Mexican Food for lunch today or for dinner. Maria Hernandez at Delia's makes a great selection. She has the freshest ingredients and cooks everything to perfection, whether it's quesadillas or loaded nachos, enchiladas, tamales, homemade on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light, just north of the Thrasher Light. And today is Friday. The special is a taco salad number 19 to get $1 off on the chicken or beef version of that fine plate. Mention that you hear her on the radio, and you'll get a free iced tea. If you have some numbers problems and need an accountant or an advisor for taxes, make sure you remember the name Eric Pelton. Eric Pelton, E.J. Pelton Company is the numbers guy. CPA, of course, online, ejpelton.com, and the number is 622-3156. That's 622-3156. And make sure you go to Jets for the best pizza. Jets not far from our studio here on Hickson Pike in the Bilo Shopping Center, a great little restaurant. And Paul Niemeyer is the owner of that. Make sure you think about getting a pizza from Paul, who's one of our advertisers here. My name is David Toulis, and I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. We have long investigation begun yesterday into the life and doings of Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz. The NSA total surveillance system, which scarfs up your text message to your wife about needing to get some milk on her way back from the ball game, because you are checking the refrigerator, noticing that there's going to be trouble for breakfast if she doesn't. That message is absorbed by the NSA, and yet this total surveillance system, which is illegal, it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, it offends the rights of free people, if we have any left, of course, and it is supposed to stop terrorist acts and terrorism and plots and so on. But it didn't work here. Though, because it has a total schema and a X key score keeps everything, the metadata and the content of all of that program and others, all the communications that we have in this country and for most people in the world, well, we'll know forensically what Muhammad did and whom he saw, what buildings to which he drove, and what restaurants at which he ate. While this investigation is going on, Governor Bill Haslam is giving a pass to another bloodletting entity other than Muslim theology, and that is Planned Parenthood. Another day when our state, Tennessee, which has 3 baby-killing centers operated by Planned Parenthood, which gets $500 million annually from Uncle, is getting another pass here in Tennessee. 5 states are investigating Planned Parenthood's organ trafficking allegations. Ben Johnson reports at lifesitenews.com, for example, that Bobby Jindal has announced in Louisiana the investigation that, in fact, he's holding up the construction of an 8,000 square foot abortion mega facility in New Orleans. The governor of nearby Texas, Greg Abbott, is following his lead. In light of the video, he says that I've directed the Texas Department of Health and Human Services Commission, big name there, to conduct an immediate investigation in this alleged practice. You should say admitted practice, right? It's not alleged, it's admitted. There is a difference. Governor Dan Patrick of that state is saying he's requesting so-and-so. And Nathan Deal in Georgia is ordering another bureaucracy to ensure this horrific practice is not occurring here, he says. And perhaps the best quote is an admission that boys and girls destroyed in utero are, in fact, boys and girls. The Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine is launching an investigation to determine if if an abortion facility in that state is profiting from the sale of aborted babies. And of course, NARAL, the she's there at this organization, Pro-Choice Ohio, it says Mike DeWine is taking orders from Ohio Right to Life. It's funny, and the media coverage of this exhilarating story is very negative and very demeaning and very belittling, making it a boring topic. And if you wanted to find out more about that, you want to go to the Federalist, Federalist.org website, which has a great study of how the official media, right, the established media, which has all the proper opinions, is handling this gruesome story. And the story is that Deborah Nucatella, who is the senior director of medical services for Planned Parenthood, has a very chatty lunch over wine goblets and salads with purported buyers of baby parts. And you'll have to see it for yourself. Don't fail to see it. It's only 8 minutes long, and there are long segments in there that are not redacted, not cut out. There is a text that runs on the side, so you can hear her and also read what she is saying. Well, my name is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com. We are at Hot News Talk Radio, the radio station that's everywhere, where you report and the world decides. My theory is at Nuganomics.com that we should love our neighbors and buy local, and we dissent on numerous things. One thing we dissent on is people becoming corporations. And I've been doing a lot of work in my private reading on this question of how do we assert that we are not walking corporations. I had a call this morning. I was out of the house taking my mother to an oncologist at Galen Medical Group downtown off Macaulay, and 1 block away from Macaulay, and in the shadow of the Missionary Ridge. And on the way back, I got a call, and I thought, well, I'm really busy, and my mom is. I've given her enough attention. She won't mind my taking this call while she's sitting here waiting as I take her back home. I thought it's a little bit rude to do that. You really shouldn't do that. But I thought, well, she's very forgiving and willing for me to do my work. And so I took this call from a man whose wife just had a baby. Alicia is the baby's name. And so he asked me, what about getting a social security number, and what about birth certificates? And I said, well, I had a conversation with this man, very much like one I had with a son a couple of days ago. And he asked me, Dad, please, I know all this. Please don't talk to me about this. He finds it kind of annoying. But the question is, can we avoid being corporations? And the answer is partly yes. And that is, and I can't get to it today, but please stay tuned to our show. Stay tuned to our station and our show. And the question is, can we avoid becoming corporations? And the answer is yes, but you have to mind your P's and Q's and have a scruple. In other words, have a scruple. And Alicia should exit the hospital, I suggested, without a birth certificate. She should be called baby so-and-so. And as I have done, my babies all left the hospital without any kind of birth certificates. And that way you avert the pressure of getting the social security number. And that's another thing. Social Security is something you voluntarily apply for, but it does put you in commerce. It does make you, in many ways, it's a kind of an agreement to be a beneficiary of a trust, the great trust, which is the American federal government, which has everybody to be a beneficiary. And so we all benefit, you see. We all benefit from the rise of the welfare state, the rise of the maintenance of the warfare state, which the 4 Marines who were killed represent. They represent the warfare state of the American capital system, the debt capital system that we have. Whether they they intend to or not, they do represent our political and military foreign interests and our commercial interests. They're kind of the strong arm people as needed, right? Only as needed of crony capitalism. Well, what should this man do? I said, well, in a nutshell, I'll keep it short here. In a nutshell, if you get a birth certificate, then it's easier for them to push upon you or to bluff or threaten you to get an SSN. And that's really important for them, that you make that application to get benefits for Alicia. Alicia needs to become one of them, right? She needs to become like you and like me. And he said he really didn't want that. He wanted her to be, a free person as long as possible. I said, well, if you are a person who files tax returns, if you're someone who has to do that and you're required to do that, and you make an admission that you're required to do that by filing the form, you can't take your daughter as a dependent without an SSN. So you're being economically coerced into getting the SSN. And he said, well, what about just stating that I refuse to get one and having an affidavit from the midwife? Well, that doesn't work. That went out the window 20 years ago. That's something that can't even be tried anymore by people who have a conscientious objection to being servants and involved in the wonderful servitude to the national government. So, but then he said, well, what about getting a driver's license? And I said, well, okay, that's another question, but that's something that she can deal with 17 years from now when she becomes older. Well, and then I said, well, what about getting married? Can she get married without an SSN? And so I said, well, what do you think? And I said, do you marry by right or do you marry by permission? You see, all of these things that we are familiar with, licenses, permissions, and obligations that we take on voluntarily. We take them on voluntarily. Can we live free? Well, maybe. I know about 4 or 5 really free people, and they are very remarkable people. The Gnome of Strawberry Plains is one of them. And I meant to spend a lot of time in law libraries, a carpenter, just a remarkable man with whom I'm working on a big project. Well, what does this say about the conflict that we have in evidence in the attack by Muhammad Yusuf Abdulaziz here in Chattanooga? This does relate. These matters do connect. And here's how. Muhammad represents a total system, a system of life that is political and external. Christianity is the conflicting system. It is a system of thought and life that contradicts it. Of course, it comes to mankind by God's revelation, right? And men believe it and live it out by God's grace, right? It's not their own wisdom that chooses God in any way. God imposes himself in time and in space and in history and brings certain men to himself. He makes them his servants and his sons. But that system contradicts the Mohammedan theory in that it deals with the internal man, right? There has to be repentance first, reformation of your own life, confession of your sins, admission of the validity of God's law against you, and it condemns you, right? Christianity says God's law condemns all men, and because God is righteous and cannot accept any sin or any sinner. And yet Christians are saved from this perfect standard that they can't meet by Christ's death on the cross for his people, right? He doesn't die for everybody. He died for his people, and he effectively saves them from their sins by his efficacious death on the cross and his resurrection. It's a system of life and thought and intellect that deals with the inner man and then works its way outward. The Muslim theory is just the opposite. It starts from the outside and doesn't care about the inside at all. It's all about the external form. And with Muslim theory, you have centralization, and centralization is what we have in our day. And not being free, Americans are not free in many ways because they don't want to be free, and they want to be part of the pyramid, the Egyptian pyramid that you have so nicely engraved on the back of your green rectangle bill with a 1 on it, right? The $1 bill has a picture of the scheme that Americans really like. They say they want to be free. They say they want to keep their guns. They say they don't like being under President Obama, and yet they do. I know maybe you are excluded. You, my listener, may be excluded from that categorization, but maybe not. So where are you? And the question with the dad and the mom of Alicia is, do they want their child to be subject to God directly, or do they want her to be involved in becoming a human corporation, a bipeded corporation, which is managed by which manages her. That's what happens. You are a private and natural person, but you are, when you take on these obligations and these commitments and these benefits, right? You take them on, you then become controlled by the avatar. That's my word for that private personal corporation that is a kind of a beneficiary. A beneficiary is a legal status. If you're a beneficiary of a trust, you are in a legal status. For example, I have my assets in trust. I'm a simple guy, and part of estate planning and making myself damage proof is to have things in trust. And I have them in trust for years now, right? And there are beneficiaries like my children, my wife. These are beneficiaries. That's a legal entity. If I create a trust and my wife is the beneficiary, she is a legal being at that point, and she's a beneficiary of the trust and the thing that's in the trust. It could be a car, it could be a business, it could be a stock, right, on Wall Street. The Muslim world is centralized. It is highly bureaucratic. It does not produce wealth. It does not produce innovation. It doesn't have any grace. It doesn't have grace in it. The attack on these two military centers is an attack on local economy. It is an attack on self-government. And was it a terror attack? No. The attacker, Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz, is not a terrorist. He is not a terrorist. He is a non-state actor carrying out a military operation. If he had shot up the salon 2 or 3 doors down from the recruitment center, that would have been terrorism, right? If he had gone into Northgate Mall, if he had not gone left there on Anacola Highway, but gone straight over the dam and to Northgate Mall and shot up the mall, as his religious fellows did in Nairobi not long ago, that's terrorism. He's not a terrorist because he made a paramilitary attack on military targets, very soft ones, right? They are military targets, soft, undefended, in a civilian locale, deep in the mother country of the enemy, right? The mother country being the United States. Now, the question comes, and I only get to this because you think you want to know what I think about this, and so it's a kind of a throwaway opinion, I suppose. But should we beef up military installations around the country? Should every employee of the federal treasury who gets his check from the treasury, should every one of them female, be armed? Should we bristle with weapons in civilian places such as the river park? Do we need to have gun emplacements? Do we need to have a trench? Do we need to have a guard tower with a machine gun over that facility among the trees there by the glinting water of the Tennessee River just downstream from the dam? And the answer, I may just suggest this, okay? I'm not going to be dogmatic about this, but it seems to me that the answer should be no. Should American soldiers be armed to the teeth? No. Well, and the reason I say no is that there are principles of having no standing army. Number one, that's already violated by the national government, by the Yankees. Okay, they're already violating that by having a standing army when we're not under any kind of threat or attack. We don't want to have an occupation. If soldiers are armed, do we not face the same danger that we have now with police being armed? Yes, that's right. Police are armed, and a Washington Post report. Sorry, just stepped away from the mic. Washington Post report a couple days ago. In fact, the day of the attack here in Chattanooga, there was a major, it wasn't Washington Post, a major report on the front of the Wall Street Journal, which I'm not going to be able to get to, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Cost of police misconduct cases soars in big U.S. cities, up 48% in the past 5 years. Payouts of $248 million last year. But how many of these cops are charged with murder? None. They're not charged with murder. I've seen video after video of cops killing people, ruining people, and are they charged criminally? No, they're not. Well, if we have an armed military presence in Chattanooga, constantly armed with convoys going around and bristling their little 223 carbines and so on, well, are we not facing a change in relationship between the local people, local economy, and the federal government? Is there not a change in view if you have armed soldiers? I say no, we should not arm soldiers. These are soldiers in a civilian setting. We are not at war with anybody. Well, wait a minute. Well, I'll stick to that. We're not at war with anybody. We've invaded some countries and promised to bring democracy and economic development into the deserts of Iraq, and so on. But well, let me just conveniently ignore that, if that's okay with you. We have a civilian government in Washington. We don't have a military government. Maybe we should have one. Maybe there should be a coup. But for now, we have civilian government and not a military occupation. What we need to have are armed civilians. We need to have less of what we have by way of occupation, whether police or military. And the American man, the American citizen, especially that man in Tennessee or that woman in Tennessee, needs to be armed. And we note this, that there were no private actors in that parking lot or in any of those buildings that saw what was happening, that was armed and ready to respond with clearly a man who was murdering. And there could have been lack of clear shot. I mean, if you have a handgun and you're a licensed carrier of a weapon, or even an unlicensed one, you can't shoot at someone. Here he was, I think he was probably standing in his car. He pulled up and started firing. He could have made a convenient target, but if your line of fire has an office window behind him, you can't shoot at him, right? You can't shoot at him if your bullet's going to go past him if it misses and hit somebody in that distant office. You can't do that. So maybe there was an armed man there or an armed woman who just didn't have a clear shot, and all we can say is that person was very wise in holding fire. You can't shoot if you're going to hit an innocent person. But let's just say that there should have been somebody there, and in God's providence there was not, but there could have been in our thinking here someone to stop Mr. Mohammed, Mr. Abdulaziz, to stop him. So do soldiers need to be armed? Well, no. We need to have a local economy that's free. We need to have signs of freedom everywhere, as Eric Judd on Half Off this morning was saying. We need to have people who are not living in fear. If we have military bases, and if we have armed cops, if we have, as I saw yesterday at the press conference, if we have police officers standing at the doors with their double banana clips, right, where one clip is in the gun and there's a separate clip tied to it, not with black tape, but with a little device. So he has a 60-round blast with one reload. We don't want that. That's not for peace and harmony. That changes the relationship between the people and the state. The police already represent the state, right? They don't represent freedom. They don't represent liberty. They are enforcers of the state, and they are enforcers of contract. They are contract enforcers. And you say, well, that's a new thought. Well, not really. Well, maybe it is a new thought for you, but they look at drivers, look at all kinds of things that who have contracts enforced on them. If you're a licensed driver and you are stopped for cause, the officer is just enforcing a contract agreement you already have with the state, and that agreement was to obey all the road rules, right? If you drive with the headlight off, you're violating a rule, and so he has a contractual claim upon you through the contract, through your signature for application, through what? Through the driver license. You have an obligation to him. We don't want more police. We don't want armed police. I think it's bad enough as it is without a military presence constantly reminding us that we are under occupation. We are here in the South. There is a clash of civilizations between Christendom and secularism on one hand. They're not allies, of course, and versus Islam on the other. That is the great clash of civilizations that Samuel Huntington, in his great book, I think it may have been the last book that he wrote before he died, The Clash of Civilizations and the Remaking of World Order in the late 90s. 97, I think it was. We have to understand that the free man doesn't want to be encumbered, but people who are not free always encumber themselves. They encumber themselves with their sins, as Christianity would argue. They are enslaved by their sins. They have no redemption. They have no hope to escape these sins. And of course, Muslim theory has also a theory of predestination and a total claim upon the man. But Christianity is so much nicer. It's so sweet. It's about mercy. It's about grace. The Savior became a man. God became a man, and he died for his people. That whole idea is an abomination to Bassam Issa, the Islamic Society of Greater Chattanooga's spokesman, and who called the attack in Chattanooga one of cowardice and hate. Yes, there is that kind of commentary that we're going to get from the Muslim world, but the man who died for his faith, he was a martyr. in the Mohammedan theory, and he was doing what he's supposed to do. Every Muslim is supposed to do what Muhammad Yusuf Abdulaziz did, and he died for his faith. He was striking at Muhammad's great rival, the United States military, in a military attack. This was not terrorism. This was a paramilitary attack here in Chattanooga, here in your hometown. My name is David Toulis, and our station is Hot News Talk Radio. Online, hotnewstalkradio.com. We are the station to listen to, and on your smartphone as well. This is David Toulis. I've got some messages here. Hang on.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured? Member of the working financially disadvantaged? Choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No mirth, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge. I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QUIKSURG. Relief.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
By the time the police get there, it may be too late. Arm yourself today. Protect you and your loved ones with a pistol, shotgun, or rifle. At Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson, they offer a huge selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. In business for over 26 years, Sportsman Supply and Services features an indoor shooting range, carry permit, and handgun safety courses. You know, in Tennessee, you can carry a handgun in your vehicle with no permit. Go to Sportsman Supply and Services today. Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson, where owner Carl, who's a former owner of Mott Lake Shooting Center, will guide you in deciding on the perfect gun. Looking for ammo? High-capacity magazines, hunting rifles, and accessories? Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson has it. If you want to save money and ammo, then add laser training as part of your shooting experience. Sportsman Supply and Services in Hickson. Their mission is to provide customers with the best firearms equipment, instruction, service, and indoor shooting experience. Sportsman Supply and Services. 4824 Hickson Pike, next to the Holiday Inn Express. Call 875-4868. That's 875-4868.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
All systems go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Soddy Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Deborah Rodriguez. Friends say he seemed like an all-American 24-year-old, but Abdul Yusuf Abdulaziz, the alleged gunman who killed 4 U.S. Marines in Chattanooga, Tennessee, may have had a darker side. They say he took a trip to the Middle East last year.
U.S. officials are already working with their overseas counterparts, intelligence and counterterrorism counterparts, to understand what he was doing on the ground, with whom he was in contact. Both countries don't elicit the immediate kind of suspicion that travel to Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or Yemen would.
CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate on Abdulaziz's blog posts where he wrote about Muslims not missing an opportunity to, quote, submit to Allah.
On its face, and I've looked at those, they don't suggest anything imminent, and they certainly wouldn't suggest, absent other information, that this is somebody who has devoted his life to the jihadi cause and is willing to kill fellow citizens in the United States.
More than 4 months after the Germanwings plane crash in the French Alps, European air safety regulators are moving towards stricter screening and oversight of commercial pilots. CBS News aviation analyst Mark Rosenker says they're playing catch-up to the U.S.
They really did not have the stringent standards as it related to initial screening. They certainly were not doing random drug and alcohol tests.
The regulators are also recommending pilots undergo psychological evaluations before they're hired. Investigators believe the Germanwings pilot had a history of mental illness and deliberately flew his plane into a mountain. Is Pluto a planet still in formation? Let's go live to CBS News space correspondent Peter King. Peter, what's new?
Well, Deborah, there are no big announcements yet, just data coming in and theories, of course. But the latest round of pictures shows a large icy plain.
I saw this image the first time. I decided I was going to call it not easy to explain terrain.
New Horizons co-investigator Jeffrey Moore.
You can clearly see that we've discovered a vast craterless plains. It has some strange story to tell.
By scientific standards, he says it's relatively young, maybe 100 million years, and it's still being shaped. Only about 1% to 2% of New Horizons data are in. Its lead scientist says that could triple by next week. Deborah?
New research shows most women who've had abortions aren't sorry they did.
There certainly are many women who regret having abortions. Signs admitting that are seen at many anti-abortion rallies. But a University of California, San Francisco study strongly suggests that's the exception, not the rule. The attitudes of 667 women who had abortions at 30 facilities across America were tracked over a 3-year period. 95% said they had made the right decision. Many of the women acknowledged feeling anger, guilt, or sadness, but emotions, negative and positive, subsided over time, according to the study in the journal PLOS One.
Correspondent Barry Bagnato. The mayor of Miami says a group led by soccer star David Beckham has confirmed plans to build a soccer stadium next to the Marlins baseball park. The Dow down 68 at 18,051. This is CBS News.
How would you like to have a large portion of your credit card debt completely forgiven, both the principal and interest? National Credit Card Relief wants to give you free information that shows you how. Thousands of people have used this program to have their credit card debt forgiven. So call now for free information and consultation. We'll give you the secret to this money-saving program absolutely free. Get eye-opening information that could save you thousands of dollars a year or a month, depending on how much you owe. In fact, the more you owe, the more you can save. All you need is $10,000 or more in credit debt, medical bills, or department store debt to qualify. Call for free debt forgiveness information now at 800-719-2090. That's 800-719-2090 to discover the secret to having your credit card debt forgiven. Call 800-719-2090. 800-719-2090. Don't wait. Call now. 800-719-2090.
The fast comes to an end for Muslims.
Muslims can eat and drink during daylight hours again as they celebrate Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan. Tanya Shatila, co-vice president of Shatila Food Products, a bakery in Metro Detroit, says she loves the traditions that come with Eid.
Everybody coming together. I know a lot of people buy new clothes and everyone gets really dressed up and they go out. It's just a really great time to be around family. I know a lot of people that will see each other that haven't seen each other in a while. You know what I mean? It'll just bring them all together.
Zahra Huber, CBS News, Detroit.
It was a huge hit when it was released in 1962.
Scout, there are some things that you're
Not old enough to understand just yet.
To Kill a Mockingbird with Gregory Peck, based on Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning book. Now, just days after the prequel hit bookstores, there's talk of making Go Set a Watchman into a movie. The author's agent tells the New York Times it's created heaps of interest. Deborah Rodriguez,
When my brother and I
CBS
opened
News.
our first Jets Pizza, we believed you made the best.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
We're members here at Hot News Talk Radio of Trade Bank of Chattanooga, and we'd like you to join us in the smarter way to barter, the smarter way to improve your cash flow, trading among 400 local businesses in every field. Learn more from the German with the Southern twang, and that is Jürgen Mutz, 877-2202. Call Jürgen at 877-2202. Our show covers local economy and the free market. One of our arguments is we need to prepare for the coming debacle, the coming cataclysm, if you will, caused by what is called the financialization of the American economy, the debt, the indebtedness, the mass debt that we have that will have to come back to earth is going to have to be written off, and all the malinvestment that comes from that bad debt is going to have to be accounted for. And our argument is start your own business. If you need help in that, contact Bruce Krebs. Bruce Krebs will get you into a franchise that suits your background, your gifts, your interests, your capital availability. Call Bruce Krebs at Entrepreneur Source to find out what he can do for you at no charge. 875-5621. That's 875-5621. We're here at Nooganomics.com. My name is David Toulis, and we're trying to make a defense of the local economy and the free market in terms of the bold and brave attack of Abdullah Aziz, whose first name is Mohammed, here in Chattanooga yesterday. What does it mean? What does this represent? What is the big picture? We have a lot of details coming in local media about the who, and a little bit more about the how. We know about 3 of the dead soldiers. They are not soldiers. I'm sorry. They are Marines. Thomas Sullivan, the eldest, at 40. Skip Wells, 21, and another man, David Wyatt, a Marine who was killed, men apparently who did not have any kind of means of defending themselves from a radical Muslim. The war of the Muslim faith against the West and against Christendom is an argument, we have to understand this, is an argument for central totalitarian power. That is what the caliphates always are. The argument that the Muslim creed makes is central power in the head of one. As Muhammad was, he was a dictator in theology and military purposes, military world, and also in civil government. He was a totalitarian in his scheme. Christianity is very much opposite that. There is a weak savior, right? The savior is the Lamb of God, not a general with thousands of armed soldiers behind him. We want to talk now with John Anthony, who's a writer and who is thinking about this question even as we talk about it. He is a writer, and he is noted, and he lives very near us here in Chattanooga. He lives in Bradley County. He's going to tell us about how the arguments for decentralization in that town and that county thwarted the efforts to centralize further by a tax increase. His lab, he runs Sustainable Freedom Lab, in which he promotes the idea of shattering by some means America's trance. Our fixation on governmental political solutions, our idea that we can buy ourselves back by having someone elected to Congress. Or having a bill passed in Congress. He is a businessman and an executive, and in 1989 he founded Corporate Measures Consulting, and in that business he helps business leaders, executives to work to help their workers to be more productive. John Anthony, welcome to Nooganomics.com.
David, thank you very much for having me.
What are the issues that are represented in this paramilitary attack in Chattanooga? What are the we mentioned centralization. What is your argument? Well, let us hear about your argument and your description of what seems to have happened here in Chattanooga.
Well, I think we have to look more and understand what are the influences of Muhammad. What did he look at and read, and how did he arrive at where he was? Is he just a crazy guy, or were there other influences? And it's those influences that may well exist there, particularly the Muslim influence, that concerns me. And that is, and I think you mentioned it earlier, it's just this whole idea of a centralized totalitarian system that kind of instructs people what to do and how to do it. And that can lead down a bad pathway. I'm very much in favor of keeping decisions local, keeping rule local, keeping authority at the local level, as opposed to getting into a central authority, whether it's even Washington, D.C., something as seemingly benign as Washington, D.C.,
seemingly
whether
benign,
it's something less benign as the Muslim world, Sharia law, communist central authority, and so on. And a good example of why there's a superiority in having local rule as opposed to this regional or global type of rule just happened in Bradley County not too long ago. The commissioners decided they wanted to have a property tax increase, which happens frequently, and there's times when you need tax increases. We all understand that. But the more we delved into it, a few local citizens, we came to realize that tax increase really wasn't earmarked to do anything other than pay for pet projects some of the commissioners had. So knowing this, we thought, well, okay, let's find out specifically how will that money be used. Well, we could not get any straight answers on how this money was going to be used, but we did find out how they were going to get the increase through. There would be a budget vote. So the council with the commissioners would sit down, they'd take a vote, and they'd say, okay, we're going to approve the budget for 2016, and then somebody all of a sudden would make a substitute motion. And the substitute motion, one commissioner would say, I want to make a substitute motion, and somebody else, and that we raise the rates from 1.89 to 1.99. Somebody seconds it, they vote on it, and next thing you know, without even realizing what's happening, you're sitting in the audience and you just had a property tax increase. So we feel as citizens that this is not a good way to do business. Most of us aren't even involved. If we didn't know about substitute motions, we wouldn't even know what took place. So the citizens got together. We notified our next door neighbors, liberal and conservative, by the way, of how this system was going to work, that the money really wasn't going toward education as was being implied on several occasions, and that we needed to go down to the town hall and participate in what was happening. So lo and behold, the night of the vote comes along, and these people, I think, they're all ready to vote for this, to vote for a tax increase. And the citizens got together, and the minute the one commissioner opened up with, I want to make a substitute motion, everybody knew in advance what was coming. We're sitting on the edge of their seats, and the rest of the commissioners looked around, and I think at that point they said, there's no way we're going to get this thing through, so nobody would even second the vote. And I thought that was just a tremendous turnaround, because this tax increase was pretty much a done deal. I had gone down to the local clerk, the town clerk's office, and I wanted to find out what will my taxes be for next year. And they said, we can't tell you yet because we know they're going up. I said, are you sure they're going up? Oh, yeah, it's just a formality now. They're going to be up, but we won't have the numbers for a few days yet. Well, now the vote hadn't even been taken, but the word was out that the taxes were going up. Well, they did not go up. And I'm proud of the people in the community for coming together to make that happen.
Well, John Anthony, was there an upset? Was there an uproar in the meeting hall? What happened exactly?
Well, not a real uproar, but people were on the edges of their seats. And at one point, there was a call for order there, quiet while the commissioners speak. And the one commissioner got up and he started to talk about, well, I'm not going to second this because we don't have the votes, but you have to realize this is for the children. Well, at that point, I jumped in. I said something because this clearly was not for the children. They voiced an intent that perhaps we'll use it for that, but there was no way to know whether it would actually go there or not. And one of the things we're learning as local community citizens, just talking together and talking with other commissioners, when the board of commissioners talks about having a debt service, they're going to use this money for debt service. There's all kinds of little ways that you can use that money for pet projects, and friends and affiliates and associates and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to go exactly the way on the surface it appears it will. So again, this is the community's money. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, we need a better breakdown. So another thing we learned together in the process was you got to watch out for some of these terms and what they actually mean to you. So no, there wasn't an uproar, but there was definitely a little bit of noise that got going there, and that the commissioner saw right away that there was no way they were going to be able to walk away unscathed if they voted in favor of that. So they were very concerned for their seats at that point.
This is David Toulis. We're talking with John Anthony, who's a writer who runs Sustainable Freedom Lab and is the founder in 1989 of a company called Corporate Measures Consulting. Now, John, let's connect this vote in Bradley County that this move to stop a tax increase, and that did for now stop the tax increase. Let's put that in the context of this centralization. So in your mind, are you saying that a tax increase generally favors centralization in the political state? Is that what the premise is of opposing the tax hike?
In a centralized environment, it's much easier to get taxes through, because I'll walk up and I'll say something like, listen, you know, if there is any kind of a tax increase, we're going to use it for debt service, and that's only going to help the children. And what are you going to do? If this is said in Nashville, or if this is said in Washington, D.C., what do I know locally about this? I don't have the wherewithal or the inside track to be able to dig into the facts to find out what's true and what's only partially true. On a local level, I get to do that. And there's a lot of indication that the local jurisdictions are under attack. For instance, if you look at Common Core, I don't know how much your audience, David, how much you discuss the issue of Common Core. This is an educational set of standards. It really is about creating a set of tests that go along with it, and those tests happen to be controlled by the federal government because they paid for them. So through that process, the government is able to literally send right down to your child's brain wherever they want from the Department of Education. They just funnel it through the testing process and then through the data collection. So most states probably wouldn't have gone along with that if they knew what it was. But instead, what the federal government did was they bribed the states. They said, we're going to take you out of the equation, because if you don't give us Common Core, if you don't sign on for Common Core, you're not going to get this your stimulus package money. Now, what about the local school board? What did they have to say about this? The answer is nothing. They were taken completely out of the loop on Common Core. What did parents have to say about it? Nothing. So here's where I'm saying there's kind of a diminution. There's a removal of local say in what takes place. If you look at regional councils, such as regional sustainable development programs, such as what's being birthed right now through this Thrive 2055, they don't yet have a non-elected regional council. But every other one in the country, with the exception of one, does have that. And regional councils pass zoning regulations that can't be overridden by your local public official. So if your property is compromised in some way, or your ownership or rights are compromised by a regional council, you have no recourse. Again, local authority is being overridden.
So the danger...
We see this. The Affordable Care Act comes between you and your doctor. The federal government insinuates themselves. So each step is slowly removing local authority and replacing it with centralized authority, and that's what I'm very concerned about.
And so the attack in Chattanooga, to connect these 2 points, the attack in Chattanooga represents a centralized total system of politics and of religion, which is Mohammedanism. It's also called Islam. And you're saying that the idea of centralization, though, has many flavors, but it has in the end the same operation, and that is to remove from local people discretion, remove from them local authority and say so, and really a kind of interest. And that, I think that's a real danger of centralization, is that people become indifferent to all the blessings that the bureaucratic state seems to be giving to them, and we become somehow lethargic. Are you seeing? Is that why this lethargy? Is that why you have this series of talks of yours called Shattering America's Trance? Is it somehow because we live in a centralized system where everything is done by remote parties for free, right? It's all for free. That somehow we're in a hypnosis.
It's for free unless you happen to have a job and you're paying for it. But yes, well, I call it a trance because people don't know what's going on, and they don't know what's going on because politicians misrepresent reality, because the media, much of it, tends to go along with the misrepresentation, and the public is the last guy in line to find out what's going on. The perfect example is the selling of fetal human body parts by Planned Parenthood. Now, you talk about a conflict of interest. Here you got the same person that's suggesting you go out and have an abortion that wants to take that baby's parts and then go ahead and sell them for a profit. Anywhere in society, these people would be blackballed, they would be outcasts, and yet, for the most part, the media has not touched this. So that leaves people in a trance, and that's what Shattering America's Trance is really all about. Locally, people think, well, even on a national or on a statewide basis, most people don't know what takes place politically. So again, they're in a trance. What's going on with the Affordable Care Act? What was the matter with Bill Haslam wanting to expand Medicaid? Wasn't that a good thing? No, not when you look at the numbers and the number of people who are being hurt rather than helped. So locally, you get to do that. And additionally, David, not only is it better for individuals to build local rule and local strength, you're stronger when you do that. There's a book that came out a few years ago, Ori Brafman, I think it was, wrote The Starfish and the Spider, I think was the name of it. And it's all about decentralized governments versus centralized one. A centralized government will always fall faster than a decentralized system. And the reason is because it has one head. And when you get rid of the head, the whole thing collapses. But when you have a series of small decentralized units, they become strong in their own right, and they find their own resources, and they become tougher and better.
So it sounds like you're saying, John Anthony, if we have more local government, more self-determination in the Chattanooga area and in the South, maybe we stand a better chance of remaining Americans longer than if we just wait on Washington to solve our problems.
Yes, and you'll have greater freedom. You'll have more money. You'll have more prosperity. You'll have more choices. And this is what comes from a decentralized system. When Washington decides what your community has to look like, what affordable housing will be in your community, and then they set up programs like smart growth and regional sustainable development, and they govern what they're going to look like through grant strings. When that happens, the costs tend to rise sky high, and the very people you want to help get hurt. Now, if I do that locally, and I have my local citizens watching over the budget, I'm not going to let those costs get that high. And all of a sudden, the local people not only do not get hurt, they begin to prosper, and they develop creative and innovative ways to build housing for the poor, to build railroad lines, to build businesses and industries, and attract new companies and new jobs. This is something that we can do locally that they cannot do on a national basis without stultifying the system somehow.
Let me ask you this question, John Anthony of Sustainable Freedom Lab and Corporate Measures Consulting. The left often is telling us, think globally, act locally. Is it silly for me to say in rebuttal, think locally and act locally? Is that silly? I mean, does that really work? Is there any possibility that having a lococentric perspective in your commerce and your politics, is that really going to make any difference given the giant Leviathan?
It makes a huge difference. If you're out playing a game of golf, it may be 100 yards that you need to get that ball, but you're looking right in front of you. So you've got to keep your feet and what's right in front of you in your mind at all time as you look at what's going on down the road. So there's nothing wrong with seeing what's going on in the world globally, but you have to think and act locally. If you think and act locally and you find ways to integrate the work that you're doing with your neighborhood, we're down here in Chattanooga, maybe what's going on in Raleigh, North Carolina, or up in New York City, you're finding ways to begin to incorporate and use the talents that they have. That's what's going to make us stronger. Remember, the 50 states, because those 50 states represent 50 different incubators for prosperity and success. When we try to put that under one common industrial complex or governmentally controlled complex, we're just going to constipate the system so that it can't really function as well as it can. Remember, we've always been a global leader in the world, by the way. It's not like all of a sudden we have to change our way of doing business or we won't be global leaders. We are global leaders. Other people emulate what the United States does. So for us suddenly decide we're going to rewrite the book by a bunch of planners and centralized HUD, DOT, and EPA programs is not likely to make us global leaders.
Well, it seems like the system you're proposing John Anthony, is really much more viable because it relies on consent. People are acting voluntarily, but that's what the attacker in Chattanooga represented, a system which is not about voluntary arrangements. It's all about top-down coercive measures, religious, legal, political, economic.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really. I don't personally know all the motivations of this gentleman, but what I see beginning to develop, it looks like yes, he was all part of this Muslim, Islamic, Sharia, totalitarian centrist. This is your place where you fit in this whole thing.
Yeah, you're not free.
There's a certain euphoria as well as a trance that, well, now I go forward and this is my duty. This is what I have to do.
You're not free,
you have
John
much
Anthony.
less chance of that kind of mesmeric insanity when you're working locally, when you're talking with next door neighbors and you have goals and ambitions that far exceed those of some radical religious organization.
John Anthony, thank you so much for joining my listener and me here at Nuganomics.com.
Thank you.
John Anthony is a writer who runs Sustainable Freedom Lab. He's a businessman, runs Corporate Measures Consulting, founded in 1989, and he's trying to explain to us how the centralized system of Islam, like the centralized system of the national federal government, will lead to a kind of death. And we are all mesmerized by it. We're all kind of in its awe. Are there any alternatives?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. HotNewsTalkRadio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240. When my brother and I opened our first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jet's.
Outside your home or business than indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. The names of the 4 Marines gunned down yesterday at 2 Chattanooga military sites have been revealed.
The fallen Marines are now identified as Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Sullivan, Lance Corporal Skip Wells, Sergeant Carson Holmquist, and David Wyatt, who were all shot in gun-free zones. The government now assessing their policies while mourners continue bringing flags and flowers to a growing makeshift memorial here.
Fox Radio's Jeff Mendoza. The Obama administration answering critics who complain the nuclear deal with Iran does not include release of 4 Americans being held there.
What there is evidence of is a rigorous U.S. government effort to try to secure the release of these individuals.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest. Former New York GOP Congressman Michael Grimm sentenced to 8 months in prison for tax evasion. Grimm pleaded guilty late last year to helping file a false tax return. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
I'm holding up for my listener on his smartphone, front page of the Chattanooga Times Free Press. And I want to say why I'm doing that. I'm doing that because I want you to understand that subscribing to your local paper is important. If you care about local media, you should subscribe to your local paper, because here in my hand, I have a record of yesterday's amazing events, which you, my listener, no doubt experienced in some fashion, maybe only tangentially, but maybe you were kind of in the middle of it. Maybe you were in a traffic jam. Maybe you were listening to our news director report live for hours on end the assault, the investigation. My name is David Toulis. Our show is Nooganomics.com. We are exploring today a clash of civilizations, and I want to mention just briefly that you need to take advantage of a man I know, Alan Jones. He runs Advantage Printing, and it's a very great, very fine print shop near the Belvoir Light on Brainerd Road. He does in-house design, digital printing, mailing services, large format projects, and I always take advantage of Alan Jones at Advantage Printing. The number is 629-1800, 629-1800. I want to talk with Rob Shearer now, who is the director of the Francis Schaeffer Study Center in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He's here in Chattanooga today. In fact, he spent the night at my house. He's an editor and a writer, and he's a publisher. He owns Greenleaf Press, which publishes histories and biographies for children and teenagers. Rob Shearer, welcome to Nooganomics.com.
Thanks. It's good to be here, David.
Well, the question I want to ask you is about this clash of civilizations between Christendom and its bastard daughter, I guess, American secularism on one hand, and on the other hand, we've got the Muslim theory. We have Mohammedanism. That is the term R.J. Rushdoony preferred to call what we call today Islam, because apparently he does not like the word Islam, because Islam refers to that beatific state when all is well with the world and Allah is on his throne in the heavens and all is right on the earth. And I don't think there's such a state exists. So anyway, what do you make of
Although Islam has another less palatable meaning for us. Islam's the Arabic word for submission, and they will tell you it means submission to the will of Allah, but they certainly in the next breath will tell you, and of course it means the submission of everyone around the world to Islam and to Sharia law.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that.
They want to impose Islam submission on everyone.
Well, now, so what you're referring to is the Mohammedan faith, which is a highly militarized, militaristic, political, totalitarian ideology on one hand, and let's skip secularism here for a moment and refer to the great rival of Mohammedanism, which is Christianity. Why is there a clash between them? What is this? We have a military attack here in Chattanooga, 4 men killed, a woman, a Marine, in grave condition in the hospital, a police officer, Mr. Pedigo, shot in the leg, and 2 others hurt, or 1 other person hurt as well. What is this clash about, Rob Shearer?
Well, I mean, from its inception, from the very beginning, during the life of Muhammad, Muhammad was a warrior, and Islam spread because Muhammad led armed parties from Medina back to Mecca to conquer those who opposed him. And within a generation of his death, the Arab tribes had been unified under a single government, single military command, and swept across the old provinces of the Roman Empire, conquered all of North Africa, all of the Middle East. Within 30 years of Muhammad's having died, there is an Arab army attempting to conquer Constantinople. So from its beginning, it has been associated with conquest, violence, and the imposition of itself with the sword. That's the way it is.
And what is to counteract that? How can Christianity counteract Islam?
Christianity, of course, at the time was still sort of a minority position, even within the late Roman Empire. Even as late as 700, 800 AD, the conquered peoples were Germanic tribes in North Africa and Spain, and a hodgepodge of civilizations and populations in the East. Christianity spread because it spread through the poor and the least privileged of the old Roman Empire, and it spread by persuasion and attraction. It took several centuries. There were eventually believers in the emperor's household, and then one of the emperors himself was converted to Christianity, and Christianity became a tolerated religion, and then within a century, the official religion of the empire, but never by Christian armies conquering Rome. And then the church itself goes through that whole experience once again. They become the dominant religion of Roman civilization only as Roman civilization is falling apart and is then conquered by a group of pagan barbarians, the Germanic tribes, and they have to be conquered, but not from a position of domination and superiority. Christian missionaries go into these Germanic tribes, and many are martyred, and by their witness and by their death and by their blood and by their peaceful proclamation of the gospel, persuade the pagan Germanic tribes to convert to Christianity. Very much in contrast to the history of Islam.
Are you saying that the religious faith of Christendom and Islam reflect their founders' lives?
Absolutely. I mean, you ask yourself, for Christians, you ask yourself in any sort of dilemma that impacts your faith and you want guidance from your faith, you can ask yourself, what would Jesus do? For a Muslim who asks himself, what would Muhammad do? He's going to get a very different answer because of the character and nature of the 2 founders' lives. Not to say that Christians have not at times been violent, wicked, evil, led armies, done terrible things, but the corrective for those misadventures on the part of Christians has always been to call them back to the life of Jesus, call them back to the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, the principles of the disciples and the early witnesses in Roman culture and medieval culture. In Islam, there is no core to call Islam back to from violence. Calling Islam back to the patterns of its founding is to call it back to violence.
Are you saying that that moderate Muslims are not being faithful to the founders' call?
Moderate Muslims, and there are many people of integrity who call themselves Muslim or Islamic. But to the extent that they are people of peace and integrity, they are disregarding many of the details of Muhammad's life and many of the calls to violence and dominance in the Quran. And there are such people. I would submit the majority of Muslims are people of integrity and honesty and peaceful intentions. But the extent that they are ignoring some of the truths at the core of Islam. That's why I'm very skeptical, although I understand the reason for it and the calls for a reformation of Islam, for a change of Islamic theology. Very interesting, the new leader of Egypt, al-Sisi, has called on the University in Cairo for a reformation of Islam and Islamic theology. And the problem is there's nothing to reform Islam back to. If you go back to the core of Islam, you will make it more violent.
So a restoration of what was lost is impossible because because the ones who are of bloody intent and military mind today are at the point of origin. They are the ones who are the faithful. They are the ones who are genuine believers in Muhammad as
exactly. I mean, when
and
Christianity
Allah.
has gone off the rails, and it has gone off the rails. I mean, human nature is greedy and sinful, and often we are capable of great evil. And that's not confined to any particular ethnic or religious group, Christians as well. But when Christianity has gone off the rails, the corrective has always been within Christianity. Christianity carries with it, contains within it, the corrective for its misadventures and misdeeds. Think of the leadership during the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. Think about the Great Awakenings in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Think about the abolitionist movement that brought an end to slavery in the British Empire and then in the American colonies. Those correctives have always come from within Christianity. Islam has no core that you can appeal to draw it back to a position of peace and tolerance, because when you look at its very origins, Muhammad combined within himself single dictatorial powers. He was simultaneously the political civil leader of Arabian culture in Mecca and Medina. He was the religious final authority in all matters relating to God, and he was the military commander of their forces and led them in battle and said, "Slay the infidels."
So he was, Rob Shearer, Muhammad was an absolutist. He had an absolute claim
both
on all
in
authority.
principle and in practice. And that's the real issue that we're dealing with. Quite frankly, I see conversion rather than revival as the solution to Islam. Those people of goodwill within Islam need to be encouraged to compare and contrast. Read the Quran, read the Bible, compare and study the life of Jesus and the life of Muhammad. We have no reason, no calling, and quite frankly, it would be pointless and fruitless to attempt to compel a change of belief on the part of anyone, especially those in Islam. But we can trust and confidently say, examine the claims of Christianity, examine the teachings of Jesus, and compare them with the teachings of Muhammad, both the Quran and the Hadith. You have to go not just to the Quran, which is the sayings that Muhammad said Gabriel gave him, but to the Hadith, which is just as authoritative for Muslims. Those are the biographies of the Prophet and the things that he did, the examples that he set. Compare those. Compare what Muhammad did with what Jesus did and taught. And we don't have to compel anyone. We don't have to force anyone, but it's the only answer to the problem of Islam. Now, in the meantime, in the short term, practically, obviously, we have to defend ourselves against armed attack. But we won't defeat or change Islamic culture by defeating them militarily.
Right, military
that
defeat
can only come by conversion.
So military defeat may be necessary against Muslim forces, may be necessary, and joining with any Christian arms would be the secularists, who also have a lot to lose in this battle. Though the secularists are no friends of Christendom at all. Is Christianity somehow, given the bloodletting in the Middle East, thanks to the American invasion in the past 15 years, is the bloodletting in the Middle East making Christ and Christianity more attractive? What is happening over there, and even in this country, among Muslim immigrants, say in Dearbornistan, Michigan? Is the gospel having sway? Is the gospel winning with its claims of peace and compassion over Muslim thinking?
I believe it is. I believe there's some encouraging sense. I don't know if you're familiar with Joel Rosenberg, who's an author, but also a bit of an evangelist and a chronicler of what's going on in the Near East and what's going on in the Islamic world. He's written a couple of books talking about the sort of underground, quiet spread of Christianity, even in the Islamic world. I think it would be a mistake for us to think, in our mistake of hubris, to think that we can, by force of arms, solve this problem. Not that we can't legitimately and shouldn't and aren't obligated to take up arms to defend ourselves.
There's a writer named Božidar Marinov, who's a Bulgarian missionary and translator of Reformed Christian works into Bulgarian, and he has makes some remarkable statements in a series of essays on immigration. Rob Shearer of Greenleaf Press and the Francis Schaeffer Study Center in Mount Juliet. He says that Dearbornistan, or Dearborn, Michigan, has many Muslim people, but many of them, he says a majority, are Christians. So apparently, and I've not had a chance to verify that by other sources, but apparently the promise of peace and grace and forgiveness by Christ, not upon people who can't do it for themselves, right? Christianity says you cannot buy God's grace, you cannot buy God's favor by anything you do or say or think. It's a gift. This is apparently having some success in Michigan. Looks like we lost our guest. Hang on just a second. This is David Toulis. We're talking with Rob Shearer of Greenleaf Press. And we just lost the connection. He's attending a conference in here in Chattanooga. He's at Jordan. He's at Camp Jordan, and where there's a homeschool expo going on. It's going on until 9 o'clock this evening, and tomorrow at Camp Jordan in East Ridge is the second day of this event. It starts at 9 o'clock and it goes until 4 o'clock. It costs only $4 to get in. It's aimed not just at homeschooling families, but at anyone who cares about education and help with children. We're talking with Rob Shearer. Rob, are you there?
I'm back. Yes, thank you.
Well, we're sorry we lost you. Okay, all right. I was making the comment. that that it seems that according to Bojidar Marinov, a Reformed writer and a translator of Reformed Christian works into Bulgarian, that many of the people who have from a Muslim background in Dearborn, Michigan, also called Dearbornistan, are Christians. And you're just telling me about why is it that Christianity is attractive to people who have had a lot of experiences with bloody and harsh Muslim teaching and practice?
Well, Islam offers only a very difficult path to salvation with no assurance. You must obey Allah and somehow be found pleasing to Him, and almost like some of the old Egyptian, we will weigh your soul against a feather, and if it's heavier by sin, then you'll be thrown to a crocodile. There's just very little assurance that anything you do can please Allah in Islam. There's a long list of rules that must be followed, and even a zealous attempt to keep them is going to fall short in most cases. Christianity instead offers hope. It offers forgiveness, even for those who have been not just victims, but who have participated in the worst of sins, who are sorry for them, who are troubled by them, who seek to be cleansed, who seek forgiveness. That hope in Christianity has resonated. Christianity is not just a method, it is the answer to the predicament of mankind. It's the only worldview that really has a realistic view of the human predicament and a solution for it. It's brutally honest in the scriptures in its depiction of the nature of man. He is both noble and in the image of God, and also capable of incredible wickedness and cruelty. And eventually we cry out, we realize that in ourselves, we can't please God, and then we are crushed under the weight of our own guilt. How do we escape that? There is a provision, and it's not in anything that we can do or must do. It's in simply the provision that God has made in His Son Jesus for us to be restored and cleansed and made able to enter into His presence. That hope resonates. That's the answer. That's the answer to the human predicament, not just for those who are caught up in the legalism of Islam, but those who are caught up in the human condition, no matter what their religious experience has been.
We're talking with Rob Shearer, who's the director of the Francis Schaeffer Study Center in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Rob, you've been teaching for at least 10 years a classic history by Paul Johnson, the English historian. I think probably the greatest living historian. It's called Modern Times. What does Modern Times tell us about this clash between the West and the world of Muhammad?
Well, Johnson was prophetic. He wrote that book in the early 80s and then expanded it a bit in the 90s. But he clearly saw the rise of terrorism, the rise of Islam already 30 years ago, and predicted it would be the ultimate clash between civilizations and would stretch across the globe. He has a line very early on in that book, though, where he says the outstanding event of the 20th century has been the failure of religious belief to disappear. And he says, in fact, he says the outstanding events are not always the things that happen, with the things that don't happen that sometimes we fail to notice or to comment on. But if you'd asked many of the leading cultural commentators, the intellectuals of the late 1800s, Darwin, Marx, Freud, Nietzsche, they all predicted that mankind was now abandoning religion, would have no more need of religion. Religion was a superstition. In the age of the industrial and scientific revolutions, religion would become increasingly irrelevant and would, within a generation or two in the 20th century, disappear. And Johnson says the astonishing thing is, in spite of the almost uniform predictions of the intellectuals in the late 1800s, it didn't. Religion remains a fundamental part of the overwhelming majority of human beings on the planet still hold religious belief dear and important and self-defining.
Okay,
it's because of the way in which we're created.
Define religious belief. What does that define that?
A belief that there is a God, a creator, a higher power, that we are not simply materialistically determined, that the ultimate meaning of life is not simply the accumulation of possessions, that materialism fails to explain the human spirit, the nobility of mankind, and his capacity for cruelty. None of those things are explained by secularism or adequately dealt with. There must be a God. There must be someone to whom we owe our existence, someone who deserves our worship. That's the fundamental expression of religious belief, and it is universal. And in fact, everybody until the 19th century intellectuals understood and acknowledged that human longing and desire to understand who created us and why we are here and to acknowledge the creator of the universe, that was a sort of universal perception. The disagreements were over who is that God, has he revealed himself, how has he revealed himself. Those were the disagreements and arguments, but the idea that there is no God, that it's all just materialism and atoms, that's a kind of a curious aberration of just a couple of generations.
Let me ask you a question here about our listener.
To actually change the beliefs of humankind, because it's not the way we're created. It's not the way we're wired.
Rob, let me ask you a question about my listener.
God-shaped hole in us.
Rob, my listener is not a Christian, doesn't profess faith. He's sympathetic to Christianity and its claims, and he likes some of the fruits of Christianity. What does secular humanism have to offer vis-a-vis the march of the Muslim theory, the military march? Is there anything that secular humanism or American materialism or American debt capitalism can offer against this highly motivated religious activity such as that of the Chattanooga gunman?
Well, secularism is fractured. Secularism is fractured between the libertarians and the authoritarians. And the authoritarians, I think, will be rather quickly co-opted. I don't think the authoritarians will stand up against Islam. They have too much in common with it. The libertarians, the libertarian tradition in the West, even the secular libertarians, I think, do honestly perceive the danger of Islam and are willing allies. They see Christians as allies with them in the preservation of liberty, and we certainly should recognize in the libertarian impulse the belief in the worth of the individual, the value of each human being, and the value and the gift that God has given us of freedom. We may disagree about, whether that was a gift of God or simply the achievement of years of mankind's struggle, as the secularists maintain, but we understand that we're co-belligerents on this issue. But the split in the secular world is between those who believe that mankind can be perfected and we can achieve some sort of secular utopia by government fiat and the right set of regulations and laws, and the libertarians among the secularists who really understand that personal freedom entails a certain messiness, but you have to create space for the individual to determine their own courses of action. And those people are our allies. And in fact, they owe their philosophy at its foundation to the Christian appreciation of the worth of the individual.
Yeah, there's an article from the Free Enterprise FEE, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, that the libertarian think tank that has a scandalous defense in the past day or two of body organ sales from babies destroyed in the abortion clinic, saying, well, even though it's a bad thing, can't some good come from it? And it's totally utilitarian. It is very, very, very sort of neo-Nazi in its argument, and that's because there's no moral center, there's no recognition of an external law that Christianity would say comes from God or is revealed by God.
Precisely. And one of the funniest quips I've seen on Twitter, it made me wince, was Iowa hawk last week who said, in all fairness to Planned Parenthood, their explanation sounded much more convincing in the original German.
Well, Rob Shearer, I do thank you for joining my listener and me here at Nuganomics.com. Thanks so much.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you, David.
Rob Shearer is a writer and an editor. He's the publisher at Greenleaf Press, which he owns, and that organization publishes histories and biographies for young people and teenagers. He's the director of the Francis Schaeffer Study Center in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. His name is Rob Shearer, and he's promoting a great author, Paul Johnson. I highly recommend Paul Johnson's book, Modern Times. It is the crucial read. He's not perfect, but his crucial read of doings in the 20th century. The name here is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. I'm an editor and a writer. I have been neglecting my website lately, but that website has a lot of profound material on it, and it's called Nuganomics.com. That's Nuganomics.com. That's our show here. Also, every weekday 1 to 3. Now, next, we've got a man who made the switch to our station, Sean Hannity. You have a friend who needs to make the switch to Hot News Talk Radio too, don't you? 1240 a.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DTs, shit, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia, you need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook, open Sunday. Cell Surgeon, we bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured? Member of the working financially disadvantaged? Choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge. I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QuickSurg. Relief.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
By the time the police get there, it may be too late.